Check. First name Adam, last name Tongsvat, Thongsavat. Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Adam Tongsvat, and I currently serve as student body president. I have called for this press conference today to denounce police actions taken against peaceful student protests, a demand that our chancellor and campus leadership aggressively reform the way future demonstrations are addressed. What happened on Friday was heartbreaking and should never allow to be happening again on any campus. It is my hope that ASUC will find truth in this process and also be a part of a larger discussion. A discussion which addresses why students and young people are frustrated by the system in which we live and learn. Today, ASUC is calling on the California Attorney General, Kamala Harris, to launch an external investigation of the police and administrative actions on Friday, November 18th. Because the UCA's police department is a part of a statewide police agency, we believe it is most appropriate to conduct an investigation through the third state attorney general's office. We also believe for the public and students to have the utmost trust in the findings of the review, the attorney general's office is the most appropriate form. Major reforms are also needed in how we address nonviolent student protests on campus. I am calling on the chancellor to allow a non-UC affiliated individual to chair the review task force. I also ask the task force be made up of a majority student and faculty committee. It is imperative that this task force be able to openly discuss and review campus and police policies. So I request that this task force not to report to the chancellor. I'd also like to call on Chancellor Katehi to immediately take responsibility of all final orders to call in police for future campus protests. There is a serious lapse of miscommunication in the chain of command. We still do not know who gave the final order to pepper spray those students. Our mission is to find that truth and hold that individual or persons accountable. This will ensure transparency. It also gives the public an ability to hold leaders' feet to the fire. Police action should always be the last resort for non-violent student protests. And we call on the chancellor to exhaust all non-police action before law enforcement is called in. Today, along with UC Berkeley Student Body President Vishali Lumba and Harvard Student Body President Sinan Ibrahim, I would like to announce a new national campaign called Students Together that will ask that every private and public university in the United States review their campus police policies for nonviolent protest. So what occurred on Friday never happens again. We call on Chancellor of UC Berkeley and Chancellor Lindley Katehi to not only support this initiative, but travel with us to college campuses around the nation and aggressively push for reform. It is my personal belief that Chancellor Katehi should not resign. I believe she has a paramount obligation to rectify the wrongs of Friday. However, once the review of our campus police department administration is complete, I believe the person who gave the order to pepper spray students should be held accountable and fired. I believe we have the unique opportunity to start a national discussion to make sure the voice of the general public is not stifled, and we address the roots of why students and young people are frustrated and angered. For the first time in the history of the UC, students are paying more for their education than the state. Those who are currently making the decisions, the UC Regents and politicians in Sacramento, are paying a fraction of what current students are paying. We need to do better. Cuts and tuition hikes have taken a tremendous toll on student life, academics, and morale. I invite each regent, legislator, and governor to come to campus and engage with students. To all my fellow students, please understand the importance of our interconnection. There is no easy answer on how to solve the difficult issues we face, but we have a true opportunity for collective leadership. Regardless of your political views or background, we need to understand our efforts are connected. Our voices are loudest when united, and I'm asking as a fellow student that we combat this on all fronts. our police departments, our campus administrations, and our legislators. This is a new era of obligation, and we must embrace it for the betterment of campus and society. Thank you. I would like to now introduce Vice President Bree Romby, who will read the resolution that we passed with the Senate.
Good afternoon. Once again, my name is Bree Romby, and last night we held an emergency Senate meeting to pass an urgent resolution in response to what has been going on this past week on our campus. This was authored by the entire ASUCD Senate, and it is an ASUCD Senate resolution to condemn the force used by the University of California, Davis Police Department against peaceful protesters on November 18, 2011, on the University of California, Davis campus, and to delineate the demands of the Associated Students, University of California, Davis, the UC Davis, UCD-PD, and UC administration moving forward from this event. Whereas on November 18, 2011, approximately 35 UCD-PD officers advanced in riot control gear onto the Memorial Union Quad, where several dozen students, faculty, and staff had gathered to peacefully protest against the university, university regents, and the state of California's disinvestment from higher education, and the police brutality exhibited by campus police officers at the University of California, Berkeley. Whereas these students, faculty, and staff were non-violently assembled, exercising their First Amendment rights to peaceful assembly, freedom of speech, and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Whereas non-violent options to address the situation were not adequately explored, instead the UCD-PD entered and ultimately escalated the situation by resorting to the use of military-grade pepper spray at point-blank range before attempting to physically remove the protesters. Whereas the excessive force demonstrated by the UCD-PD resulted in the need for medical attention of several participants and hospitalization of 2 peaceful protesters. Whereas the UCD-PD has also demonstrated clear lack of concern for student safety through their repeated failure to adequately address multiple hate crimes that have occurred on the UC Davis campus. And whereas these UC-wide peaceful protests are in response to the disinvestment in higher education by the state of California and the major structural flaws of the University of California system, including the selection of the UC regents and the UC chancellors. Whereas similar police brutality has occurred across UC campuses by the University of California Police Department and the various police agencies with which it has continuous clauses, most recently at UC Berkeley. Whereas there have been no formal apology from the UCD-PD or any admittance or recognition of fault in response to the violence perpetuated against student protesters on Friday, November 18th. Therefore, be it resolved that the ASUCD condemns the excessive, unnecessary, and violent force used by the UCD-PD against innocent and peaceful student protesters on November 18th. Therefore, let it be further resolved that the ASUCD demands a formal, independent investigation by the California State Attorney General's office into the event on November 18th, specifically concerning the legality of the use of pepper spray against non-violent, non-threatening demonstrators with full compliance from the UC Davis administrator. Therefore, let it be further resolved that, at the conclusion of this independent investigation, those who are implicated in causing unwarranted harm to students, faculty, and our staff should resign or be removed from their position within the UCPD or UC Davis administration. And therefore, let it be resolved that the ASUC demands that all officers in the UCD-PD undergo sensitivity and diversity training within the next 6 months that addresses the recent issues and complaints of students in regards to the actions on the UCD campus. And therefore, let it be further resolved that the ASUCD demands that the University of California Davis policies and procedures be reviewed and amended according by the Administrative and Resource Management and the Office of Student Affairs to better accommodate students and future peaceful demonstrations, including but not limited to signed authorization by the Chancellor and any UCD-PD action in regards to student protests. And therefore, let it be further resolved that the ASUCD demands that Chancellor Patahey increase the number of student representatives in administrative groups, such as administrative advisory committees that have substantive control over the policies and actions on the UC Davis administration. And therefore, let it further be resolved that UC police policy, specifically in regards to student peaceful protests in reaction to the reported hate crimes on campus, must be reviewed by the end of the academic calendar year by an independent outside party, and changes in these policies must be made to accommodate the unique situation of modern peaceful student protests. And therefore, let it further be resolved that the ASUCD demands that information describing peaceful protesters' rights, possible police responses, and applicable university or other legal consequences be compiled by Student Affairs and disseminated through online documentation and an email to the UC Davis community, and calls on Chancellor Patahey and UC President Mark Udoff to actively support such First Amendment rights. And therefore, let it be further resolved that the ASUCD demands that specific guidelines for the selection of members, their assigned tasks, and the goals of Chancellor Patahey's proposed task force are immediately drafted and publicly released no later than Tuesday, November 29th, 2011. And therefore, let it be further resolved that the ASUCD demands all UC chancellors make it their foremost priority to actively advocate on behalf of the University of California, the UC Regents, and the state legislators to support reinvesting state funding back into higher education by advocating to state legislators through lobby visits alongside students and advocating for tax reform, including but not limited to the repeal or reform of Proposition 13. Therefore, let it be further resolved that the ASUCD demands Chancellor Patahey engage in discourse with the student body regarding executive decisions that UCD faces, encouraging student input in decisions made on this university campus. And therefore, let it be finally resolved that the aforementioned clauses represent the opinion and concerns of the students of the UC Davis campus, and if Chancellor Patahey fails to fulfill these demands, then ASUCD calls for Chancellor Patahey's resignation by the end of the academic year. This resolution can also be found on our ASUCD website, and it was passed unanimously last night.
Appreciate the support. Any questions for media, we'll take them after the press conference. Thank you very much. Thank you again.
If anyone would like copies of the resolution, we have them available for you.
I'm gonna go grab my mic. Hold on, man. We have another surprise.